vortices of energy. And where those energies overlap, it creates the lens. All eyes require a lens through which to see. And so this lens, where the overlapping vortices of energy meet, is called the sacred square inch. And that is the lens for the third eye. It sounds fairly simple. It's pretty difficult to do. The third factor that we wanted to add tonight, I don't know if we'll get to our vignettes or not, we'll try to, because there'll undoubtedly be some questions that some of you will have. But in the creation of the Antakarana, which is another factor that eventually leads to conscious mediumship, which is the highest form of knowing, is explained here in this glyph of the two opposing triangles of the lower triad and of the higher triad, and between them is the Antakarana, a bridge of conscious, mental, atmic and buddhic substance that creates this. But it also means that you have to live as a soul in the world. You can't maintain your drunken debauchery and think that you can construct the Antakarana. It doesn't work that way. You really have to live a very sane and spiritually sober life in order to do it. And then when the integration takes place, these two triangles merge and it creates what really is the Star of David. It's one of the deep esoteric signals of Egyptian mysticism and of Judaism. Is the Star of David is the overlapping triads of energy from the soul and its lower mechanism. And it creates what appears to be a Star of David. But that's the most important thing that you can do. And the easiest way to create the integrated, one of the ways to create the integrated soul and personality is through the keeping of a spiritual diary and recording your dreams. And not only recording your dreams, but also recording spiritual or sometimes synchronistic events, unusual events that happen in the outer world. And you get to a point in your consciousness where it's kind of, I mean, you always know the difference between the dream world and the real world, but they blend. They blend by virtue of the fact that you're able to read the gloss. Reading the gloss is to see the symbolism and the spiritual significance of those symbols in the outer, real, physical world, day-to-day world. I told a couple of stories last week of experiences that I had, which were unusual events and seemed dreamlike, but yet they took place in the real world. One of them was where I was in a department store, and the south end and the north ends of the building were solid glass with solid glass doors. And this guy walked into the door on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock in the evening and shattered the glass of the door. He wasn't harmed, luckily, minor abrasions. But a week later, in the same store at the same time at 7 o'clock in the summer time, a guy walked into the glass. I was in the same location a week later. Walked into the glass door at the north end of this store, big department store in a huge mall, and shattered the glass. And there was a week apart at the exact same time, I was in the exact same location. So there are a couple of ways to interpret that. I knew the meaning that the illusion of the physical world for me was being shattered, but also it was a signpost on the path. And when you're making spiritual progress, you will have what are called signposts on the path. And they can happen in many, many ways, just anything you can imagine. But as long as you're able to interpret it, that's the significant thing. And it shows growth, and it shows the integration or psychosynthesis. Roberto Jolie called it psychosynthesis. I think Bailey and Blavatsky just called it synthesis. But it's the integration. Ultimately, what we're talking about is the integration of the personality with the soul, and living as a soul, not doing soul destroying things that are often tempting for us, but living a very pure kind of a life. You can create this antakarana. And it's a valuable tool because it will lead to conscious mediumship. Blavatsky was a conscious medium, and conscious mediumship is the highest form of knowing, is conscious mediumship. I had an experience in conscious mediumship 20 years ago with the 911 event, where I saw it happen 10 days before it actually did, when I came out of meditation in my den. So it can have many forms. It can take many, many forms and many directions, but it's always accurate and it's always true. And it's part of our development to become really conscious mediums. And it can be a tremendous value, can help heal more efficiently. When these head centers are open, you can focus your energy in the brow chakra and focus it to the chakra that is nearest on the body of the ill patient. You don't focus on the organs, you focus on the chakra that is nearest to the center where the issue of health is concerned. What time is it now? Does anybody know what time it is?
5 after 8.
5 after 8. Okay. Okay, well, I made my point for tonight. What you want to do is you have to get a cheap spiral binder. You used to be able to buy them for 99 cents. And you can get a pencil, a 2B pencil, like you had in grade school, and keep it by your bed. And you can use your diary in a number of ways. You can use it to record your dreams, your visions, your lucograms, where you have a dream, but it's an image. That's the lucigram. It's just one image. It may move, have some movement to it, but primarily it's one image, and it's telling you something very, very powerful. A lucigram, kind of a neologism, a new word for the new age. It'll be popularized in the next 100, 200 years. Very important. So you can also proposition your higher self by writing questions in your spiritual diary. You can write out astrological aspects and pose a question. After you've written out the aspects in a horoscope, you might be trying to help somebody. So you write out aspects in their horoscope and then pose the question, what does this mean, O Lord? You're speaking to your higher self, which is your Lord, your soul. And it is constantly trying to communicate with you through the dream life. That's what dreams are all about. The deep esoteric significance of the dream life is that your soul or higher self is constantly trying to get your attention, is trying to tell you something. You may have dreams where you're in the astral world and they seem nonsensical. Pay attention. Sometimes the more absurd the dream, the more important and the more powerful it is. And the recording of the dreams is an important thing. I remember being at Baker's and he had decades of notebooks where he had written his dreams down. And people are beginning to do this. I started to do it in I think it was in 75, just kind of out of the thin blue air. I got the idea to start doing that. I had salubrious results. And nowadays it's becoming more common and more popular. I think because there's mostly among younger people. Something that they're doing probably for the same reasons that I did it in 1975. So they're in tune. They're in tune with something that's very important. And if they continue to do it throughout their lives, they will, I guarantee you, they will have wonderful, wonderful results from it. It's part of a growing process that the soul can take part in with you. And the whole idea, again, is psychosynthesis, merging the personality with the soul and living as a soul. Easy to say, hard to do, but we've all got to try to do it. It takes a lot of willpower. And that's the Atma side of the entire thing. The Atmic side of it is the will of God, the will to persevere, the will to do it. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. I don't guarantee I can. And hopefully we'll have a couple of minutes for a few vignettes that are relevant to things that are going on in the world today. So are they able to speak now?
Yeah, we don't have the same capability as we normally do. So if somebody needs to ask a question, just unmute yourself. I can't see who's on this or not right now. So just unmute yourself, say who you are and ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, David. This is Jeff Crone. I have a question. With the fourth ray coming through stronger, is the activity of dream life more active, or will it become more active, or not so much, or neutral?
That's a good question. I don't think it'll become more active. I think you'll see the activity of the ray will become more noticeable in the outer world. Could become more active, I guess, on the inner world now that I think about it. But the thing that's significant about the fourth ray is that it will bring harmony through conflict. We're in the conflict stage right now. And we don't see much harmony coming out of it, but it's coming. And I am convinced of it absolutely. Also, the third ray is coming in, and so is the seventh ray. The third ray's souls are people who have a tremendous affinity for the animal kingdom and want to help animals, and who have an undying love for the animal kingdom. They are the protectors of the animal kingdom. And the seventh ray is the ray of a ceremony and order, we say. But the order comes in many ways. It can come through religious rituals and disciplines, but it also comes through things like the interstate highway system was a product of the seventh ray, where it brought order to immense highway traffic. We don't think of the rays sometimes in such worldly ways, but we should, because it's true, it's accurate, and it's an expression of the seventh ray. People who are concerned about nature and who want to clean up the planet, they're growing in numbers. And over the next 100 years or more, there'll be vast numbers of seventh ray personalities and seventh ray souls in the world who will go about the work of restoring the health of the planet. And they'll get help from the angelic kingdoms, from the David kingdoms, where they'll be taught how to farm more efficiently. Linda's farm, if anybody can remember, was named William Irwin Thompson, and Linda's farm, where, and Steiner, the work of Rudolf Steiner, biodynamic gardening, things like that were early expressions of what is coming through the seventh ray. We're living in a really an exciting time. There's just everything is being thrown at us at this time. And that brings to mind one of the things that I wanted to share with the group. I had it on my Facebook page. I wrote it out. It was a statement from Mahatma Moria, who was one of the founders, along with Blavatsky, and a master by the name of Kutumi, who was St. Francis of Assisi in a previous incarnation. And he said that the three main tests which leaders in Atlantis failed at were greed, lust for power, and suppressing free thought. Circumstances became so grave that, according to the master Moria, capital punishment existed if you spoke the truth. We're almost there. We're almost to that point. And it tells me that there's a resurgence of black magicians and planetary evil in the world that's unfolding before our eyes, and only of a few of us see it for what it really is. So be advised. A great war is being fought, as Alice Bailey said it would, on the mental planes. It's being fought in the airwaves of the world through television, the internet, radio, you name it. And it's a very, very dangerous and very tenuous time. I believe that the forces of good will triumph over evil, and that we will see sometime around or after the year 2025, the externalization of the spiritual hierarchy of the planet. The only thing that would curtail that would be if the dark forces won the war. I don't think they will. We're told on the inner planes that everything is going according to plan. So that's the good news. And I guess if there's any other questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Anybody here has anything in the classroom here at my house, feel free to ask. What time is it?
8:17.
8:17. So we got about 13 minutes. Anybody got a question out there?
Well, I've got another question, David, about human trafficking. I remember one of your lectures, you said that the human trafficking, once that it'll be revealed in 2025, basically but we got to get this human trafficking get the upper hand on that. I don't know where it stands today. I don't know if there's really any accurate information about what's happening in that realm. I know it's going on, but I don't know if we're advancing, and that, and like, I don't know what the barometer is, how to really watch the barometer of that factor, and as far as the leader being revealed. But the trafficking, I know, is a big problem in a sense of a determining factor about when that might happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah. Baker, 12 years ago, Baker told me that in a very confidential way, that one of the great concerns of the spiritual hierarchy is this issue of especially any sex trafficking, but the sex trafficking of children and the accompanying pornography that goes with it is the biggest money maker on the planet. They make more money than the drug cartels. It is a product of planetary evil. It extends back to Lemuria, to the very beginnings of the human race almost. And it's periodically, it surfaces. It has really and truly surfaced now in the world through the use of the internet, which again is part of this vast battle that we vaguely call World War III. Makes more money than the drug cartels. They can make hundreds of millions of dollars in a matter of a few minutes, 15-minute video, child pornography, carried to its ultimate conclusion, I'm sorry to say, where the child is sacrificed in many incidents, and people, millions of people are paying $400 and $500 to watch a film that somebody's put together. I guess you have to go on to the what do they call it, the deep,
The dark web.
the dark web, into the dark web, which interestingly enough was founded by the United States Navy and then taken over by international criminal elements. And many of the politicians and leaders of the world have been compromised by guys like Jeffrey Epstein and others, and they use it. You have to be guilty of the crime in some of these cases to get on to view the filming. So you yourself are implicated in a crime, and they hold that over you. We had cases here in Michigan with the Oakland County, what was it called? The Oakland County child murders. And the one of the guys was related to the little girl in Colorado. What was her name? John Bonet Ramsey. Her grandfather was a child pornographer. Built an airport, I think on Fox Island, up in Lake Michigan. But he was involved. It runs so deep that it's incomprehensible. And Baker said to me that it had to be cleaned up before we could experience the benefits of 2025. And he said if it isn't cleaned up, we won't see the events of 2025. So I think it's collapsing. It's beginning. We're in the early stages of it, but more and more people are aware of it all the time, and that's the important thing, is to get the word out. It's so incredible and so unbelievable that the criminal element behind it, that if you were to expose it all at once, people would never believe it because they couldn't process it, mentally process or emotionally process it. So it's going to be coming out in little bits and pieces, and it probably will lead, I believe, to some sort of a worldwide tribunal, not really too different from the Nuremberg trials, where the World Court in The Hague or somewhere in the world, groups of legal scholars, judges who aren't corrupt will bring the charges, possibly through military tribunals. Fauci has it in his horoscope. He has a military tribunal where he's assigned over to the Judge Adjutant General, the JAG officer. And so we haven't heard the last of that yet. But the other nations of the world are probably the ones that will bring it to the surface, and not so much in America, because America is just too corrupt, and the majority of the people are passé. They have a laissez-faire attitude about the whole thing. And it may have to come from somewhere, maybe groups of countries in Europe will unite. And instead of worrying about global warming, which I think is a farce, they'll get involved in things like the issue of child sex trafficking, murder, and adrenochrome, if you know what that is. So that's another thing. But the world is a very corrupt place. And of course, it's the end of the Piscean age. And so all of the evils of the age surface before it dies out, and the new energies of Aquarius can begin to pour in. So it's a birthing. We're in a birthing stage now, and we're birthing a new age. That's the important thing.
8:20.
Got 5 minutes.
You got 5 minutes. So anybody else wants to?
David,
Yeah.
what makes up a human soul?
What makes up a human soul? Good question. The soul is a product of the monad. The monad is your link to God. And the monad uses the soul as its vehicle. And then the soul uses the body as a vehicle. But it's ultimately, we're all monads. There's 63 billion monads are using the Earth's chain of evolution as a vehicle of expression. So we have to first understand what a monad is. It is that one spark that unites you to God. It's that one fragment. And then the soul is its vehicle. The soul is the vehicle of the individualized monad, which really isn't separate from God. But so the soul takes a journey, and the journey for the soul through many lifetimes leads back to the oneness of the monad, back to the divine. I hope that made sense.
That's the
We can
prodigal
talk about
son.
the prodigal son,
Yeah.
yeah. The myth of the prodigal son. Yeah, good
We're all
question.
the prodigal sons.
We all
We're
are. Yeah,
all
we're
of
all
us.
prodigal sons. Some of us a little more
And
than
daughters.
others. Right. Okay. Anybody else? Got to be half a dozen or more dozen people tonight. It's difficult a lot of times for Americans to ask questions. Europeans ask questions pretty easily. And the reason Americans have trouble asking questions is that life is easy here compared to other places in the world. And so we don't think in terms of problems or questions. Again, the laissez-faire attitude of life in America doesn't really afford us an ability to ask questions. Some people do, but the majority of Americans, I know when Baker would get done lecturing, and Americans would just sit there like flabbergasted or whatever. Baker would say, ask me questions, ask me questions.
I have a question. This is
Okay.
Jennifer. Hi, this is
Hi,
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Hello. I really enjoyed the previous questions. I want to thank everybody, and I of course too love the answers. I hope I can frame my question correctly. Last week, you mentioned in building the third eye or opening the third eye, one of the exercises that you did was the candle exercise, but you replaced it with a Himalayan salt lamp.
Yeah.
Yes, I know the simplicity is just, it's a simple exercise, but I would love to hear how, if you could explain that just a little bit more and the process by which you take.
There's something about light. When thine eye be single, thy whole body will be filled with light. A lighted candle is a valuable tool. It's an artificial kind of a light, of an inner light. And I always found it beneficial to meditate with a candle or some sort of a small, fairly dim light in the room. Total darkness just never really worked for me. But there are other factors too. Incense is an important factor because incense will draw in Davidic angelic beings. I remember when I'd go to talk to Baker privately in his upstairs in his bedroom, he would light a jaw stick of incense. And he would motion his hand like this, so he was drawing the smoke over to him. And the higher these Davidic forces would be attracted to the smell of the incense. So incense is a good thing, not too much, but a little bit is a very good thing. Again, the light, I think candlelight in the beginning worked the best for me, but I use a salt lamp now. And the other thing that the salt lamp will do is that it will dispel, as the candlelight will do, it will dispel the darker forces and bring in the forces of light, or the angelic members who are the bearers of light. So light attracts light. I hope that's helpful. But you can really have salubrious results if you do those two things. There's a third thing that you can do. And the third thing to do, it's a little arduous in a way, is to have a chair, preferably a wooden chair. And the chair is saturated with your vibrations. And by that, I mean that perhaps you have sanded the chair and varnished the chair and polished the chair with your hands, and maybe some cheesecloth towels or rags, and you've varnished it and you've waxed it, but you've put your vibrations of your hands throughout that chair. And then you cover the chair, Yogananda said, with perhaps the skin of an animal, a hide, like a deer hide, and then a wool blanket, and then a piece of silk. And when you have those three different materials laid on the chair, both for comfort and for very esoteric reasons, especially the silk, you add extra energy to your own physical body, and you become a receptive force to higher impression. And so that's another thing that you can do along with the incense and the lighted candles, or nowadays I use a salt lamp.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're valuable things to do, and it's worth thinking about, believe me.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I've written down what you've said, and I hope others, you know.
Yeah, if you do these things, and if you keep the spiritual diary, if you read the books, Harmonists, the all-called classics, books by Bailey, Baker, Blavatsky, C.W. Leadbeater, any of the old-time Theosophist guys, De Prucker, you're drawing in Harmonists into the dormant cells of the brain, and it's activating regions of the brain that have been dormant. And a very important thing to do, along with service to mankind, some service that you perform on a regular basis. And then, of course, the third thing is meditation. And tonight we talked about a fourth factor that is, I believe, very important, and that's keeping a spiritual diary. If you can't remember all of your dream, write down what you can remember. If you can't remember any of it, then through an act of will, tell yourself each night when you go to bed, I'm going to remember my dreams tonight. I'm going to remember my dreams, and I will write them down. And of course, that means that sometimes you have to wake up in the middle of the night from your dream to write it down, which can be somewhat arduous, but it's the willpower, it's the aspect of the atmic end of the spectrum that is so valuable to the person who records their dreams. In fact, we have a book over there. Can you get that book? It's called it's behind that board there, Tracy. It's Spiritual Diary. Should be on the right-hand side of the bookshelf at the bottom, I think. It used to be there. You see them or not? Are they there? I don't know. Okay, well, Baker wrote a book called the Spiritual Diary, and it shows you how to keep a spiritual diary. And we've got some copies around here somewhere. I don't know, everything got moved a while back. They're right there in front of you. Tracy, right there. To the left. Right in front of your face.
Right in front of your face. Right in the middle.
Oh, so many books.
The spiritual diary. Invaluable tool. And if you just took the little bit that I've given you tonight and practiced it, you'll begin to have benefits from doing that. Spiritual diary. An invaluable tool, I assure you.
Try to get it
And
closer.
all you need is a 99-cent notebook and a graphite pencil. And you can start tonight. You can start tonight to write them down. And it's a tool through which you can grow by asking questions, and you'll get feedback. We do that in esoteric astrology to get feedback when we're trying to figure out difficult aspects in a horoscope. So
You might want to explain why a pencil,
a pencil.
why the graphite pencil.
Yeah, why a graphite pencil is a great question, Tracy. The graphite pencil creates a line on a piece of paper that is 1 atom thick. And it absorbs, the nature of the carbon of the graphene is to absorb your auric radiations into the 1 atom thick layer of graphite or graphene on the paper. And it helps preserve it, it energizes it, and adds numinostic energy that you can read and receive back when you read your dream in the morning or a week later or 10 years later. That energy is absorbed into that atom thick layer of graphene from your pencil that you used when you were in the second grade. A 2B pencil is a marvelous tool. And someday the mystery of it will be understood. We've explained some of it here tonight. I hope that answered some questions.
Yes, it did. It was excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Okay.
9:40.
9:40.
8:30.
Can't wait.
9:40
No,
or 8:40.
8:40.
8:40.
Okay, we're going to sign off,
Yeah,
folks. So we'll see you next week, next Wednesday. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you
Definitely.
all. Appreciate
All
it,
right.
David.
Yep. Have a great night.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.